as we start moving towards the playoffs, I think it's worth noting how good teams start guarding other good teams. And so in this game of Denver versus OKC, I want to take a look at a couple of things that we can notice from the shots that Denver was choosing to allow for OKC. So here we can see the defense chooses to help down aggressively, put a bunch of bodies in the paint to make sure essentially OKC doesn't have this drive right here, even if that means leaving Chet semi-open on the perimeter, and they're willing in this case to settle for this semi-contested shot with a late closeout to Chet Holmgren. I like to think of basketball as certainly you got to think about what you're giving up versus what you're trying to take away. And so each defense needs to go through the calculation in their head. Is it worth it to try and defend that shot, or should I allow that shot because that's worse than what they're going to get otherwise? So here we can see Aaron Wiggins right here. And so they do a similar thing with Aaron Wiggins. Like normally Jokic would never switch this kind of thing, but I guess because it's late in the shot clock, or he thinks that Aaron Wiggins isn't as much of a threat, he's willing to concede this switch. And I mean, with Jokic, like Jokic is not going to be super out here aggressive and also be able to guard the paint. That's just not going to happen. So Jokic says, okay, well, I'm going to take away one of them, so I'm going to take away the drive and give you a contested three on the perimeter, which Aaron Wiggins takes and hits it, which is semi-surprising because both Chet and Wiggins shoot the ball at a fairly high efficiency, 35+%. And then our third example, I personally agree with it much more right here. This is where we're going to see Kenrich Williams right here. And so he's still shooting the ball pretty well this year, like 40% or something like that, but it's much lower volume. And the issue is he set the screen with SGA, so you don't want to give SGA room because SGA is very, very efficient. Okay, so Denver says, okay, we're going to momentarily put two on the ball and say we're going to have the original defender and or somebody else rotate there later, but we're not even going to rotate super hard. Like this is not an aggressive closeout. We're going to concede that shot because it's the lesser of all evils. And I like to think in competitive games like this, it's not always going to be exactly accurate for what we're going to see in the playoffs, but between two good teams, they're definitely going to show some tendencies because they want to at least practice them in real game speed before they get to a 7-game series, so that way they know loosely what they're going on. So here, this is not the exact same as like a rotation not closing out, but going under the screen is another form of saying essentially, we don't really respect you that much as a shooter. We're going to choose to take away the drive first because we don't believe you can punish us with the space on the outside. And Chet does not hesitate. If you're going to go into the screen, he wants to shoot that ball. And that's probably what you got to tell him, but Denver is apparently willing to make that trade-off. Now, the overarching battle that we're actually seeing here is essentially it's a battle for space. The idea is like, if we're going to sag off, we're going to protect the paint more. If we're going to close out, we're going to protect the paint less. And so Denver's saying, we're not going to respect you as much on the perimeter. We're going to try and take away things on the inside because that's where we think you have more value. And so here we can see Jokic again. He was on Chet and he is shifting over to make sure you don't have a drive right here. And obviously the original on-ball defender staying with him. So they have Chet loosely unguarded over here. And let's see, does anyone rotate quickly? No, look at that. I mean, Spencer Jones right there. Jab, immediately back. Jokic not closing out hard whatsoever. Say Chet will live with that shot, have a late contest. And I mean, I'm curious to see if this keeps up in the playoffs, if other teams choose to do this as well. And then finally, probably the most obvious example, and one of the big things is a lot of times teams will take what happens in the regular season and apply it to the playoffs. So like if Chet missed quite a few threes in this game, which he did, with those open ones that we've looked at, he's missed a few of them. And so Denver might be like, okay, well, this worked. I mean, they lost, obviously, but this worked relatively as far as Chet goes. And so they might try and approach this in the playoffs simply because it had some success. And again, we have it here with Aaron Wiggins. And this, I mean, clearly this is Denver's, maybe it's because Aaron Wiggins doesn't get as many minutes, so they weren't entirely sure how to guard it. But you can see that both players are kind of like, okay, are we switching? Are we staying and hedging and leaving like rotation behind? But Jokic stays out here on the perimeter, like is not trying to go back here. And maybe it's because it's super low shot clock, but either way, no one really fully commits. And the miscommunication leads to a wide open three, or maybe that was intentional. Not entirely sure, but they've been giving up shots to Aaron Wiggins, Kenrich Williams, and Chet Holmgren. So it is super interesting to see whether we see that in the playoffs or other teams implement that as well.